Hello and welcome to another episode of Agentforce Now Ask Me Anything. I'm your host, Charles Watkins, lead developer advocate at Salesforce. And this month, we have an amazing show for you today. We're going to be talking about my favorite new thing coming out of Salesforce with two of my favorite people. So let's hop right into it. All right. So I am going to bring up our presentation here, and we're going to talk about building React on Salesforce with the new multi-framework runtime. All right, let's get it. So as always, I want to remind you that Salesforce is a publicly traded company. So you shouldn't make any purchasing decisions based on anything that you see here. Second, I want to remind you to join the Salesforce developers global community and interact with other trailblazers interested in building the future of the platform. Alrighty. I also want to remind you that we have Agentforce Now events like this live stream all throughout the month, every single month. So remember to register for upcoming Agentforce Now events using the QR screen that you see on the screen right now. Go ahead. You can also use the sforce.co agentforce_now link, and it'll take you right there for code lives, AMAs, and guided workshops. So today, I promised you that we get to talk with some of my favorite people here at Salesforce. We have them here with us today. We have Alice O, Product Management Director, and Jeff Douglas. I'm going to bring them on stream right now. All right, here we are. I'll let you both introduce yourselves if you'd like to before we hop right into the presentation.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. So I'm Jeff Douglas, Product Management Director for Agentforce Vibes. Been a long-time Salesforce developer since 2007. Joined Salesforce in 2015 to start this tiny little project called Trailhead. Some people may have heard of that before. Did that for a long time, and now I'm in product management with one of the coolest tools I've ever been involved with in my life, Agentforce Vibes. And I'm here also with two of my favorite people, Charles and Alice as well.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Charles. Great to meet y'all. I'm Alice O. I'm a product management director at Salesforce. I've been at Salesforce for 4 years. All 4 of those years in the platform space, building out how you build apps on Salesforce. And that's one of the things that makes me super excited about today's topic, which is the Salesforce Multi-Framework and how you can vibe code that with Agentforce Vibes. Because now the future of app building has become so different and so much easier and faster with all of the toolings that are available with AI. So I'm really stoked to talk about them and share a little bit more and take any of your questions you might have.
Awesome. Now, we will be taking questions, but as always, we are going to start with a quick presentation from our experts. So Alice, Douglas, Jeff, take it away.
Sure. Next slide there. Okay. So let's start off by talking about, what we introduced at TDX. So I think Headless 360 represents, a fundamental shift in how we operate with Salesforce. So, we're moving from a UI first platform to an API first infrastructure. And what we're doing is, decoupling the business logic from the browser. You may have seen some people say death the browser, but we've made every Salesforce capability, deployable onto any surface that's accessible via, MCP tool, API, or even CLI command. And this allows, AI agents to be able to execute these complex workflows while developers can, be building with external preferred tools. Next one, please, Charles. This is the eye chart here. So, let's start with something familiar. We have these 4 systems that we all know and love. At the bottom is, your system context, Data 360. This is where all your customer data information resides. Above that is Customer 360, your system of work, and where the clouds and the different industries and the business logic work. And then, of course, one of my favorite system of agency, Agentforce, where the agents reason and act on each other. And on top of that is the system of engagement, Slack, where it seems like everything happens nowadays. So But what's new with all this Header 360 is that on the kind of the right hand side, all these have any data lake you want to use, any app, any agent, any workspace. Every layer is now open and programmable from the outside. So that takes us to where I would talk about Agentforce Vibes. So let's see how we can take advantage of Header 360 with Agentforce Vibes. So also mentioned again TDX. So this is some of the things we announced at TDX, our new version of Agentforce Vibes. It's built totally from the ground up on an open and extensible SDK. We're going to be releasing 2.0 the next week. And I know Alex is super excited to tell you more about this, but it's going to be GA in a couple of weeks. You can be using it. It's going to give you much more development power than you've had before. Going to have some things like, there's going to be different SDKs you can choose from. You can choose, if you like using Claude Code, you're going to be able to choose a Claude Code SDK and be using Claude Code inside of Vibes. Or if you want to use more of OpenAI's SDKs, you'll have them too. So if you want to choose, if you can't use one SDK or another, it's not a brand new tool. You can just switch to a different setting for the provider, and you've got that power inside that tool you're so used to using. There's also a planner mode where you can actually do more of like a, let's say, a large refactor or build an MCP or a POC, and you can provide some prompts or a spec design, and it'll walk you through the process of building that task. More of a agentic run case for that as well. And then we're doing that kind of build through swarms of agents and groups to parallelize tasks. And you can see that as well, as you can build things much faster, much more complete. And how can you get it? Well, it's going to be available in almost every single, pre-installed in the sandboxes. You can connect with different IDEs as well. There's going to be a number of rules and skills and MCP servers that are already installed. We've got, I think, close now, Alice, if I'm wrong, let me know, about like 60 skills that we are out of the box with, about 70 so MCP servers tailored to perform actions for you, or get metadata on the servers, or even know more about your server. So one of the MCP servers is the new Salesforce catalog, where you can actually interact with your org and all the metadata, even though it's not locally in your project. So you can reach into your org and you can find out, is there a custom field in there that has some pickless values that I want to use? And you can discover that using Agentforce Vibes without that metadata being locally on your machine. So there's a lot of tools involved with that too, for looking at org intelligence, scaling. We've got a lot of tools for code analyzer that are built right in, and you can run those to get the best practices, security involved with that as well. And then finally, analytics. You can look at what your team is doing in different orgs. So, and that's all, of course, baked into the Agentforce trust layer that everybody knows and loves, where we mask PII and paid information, and the models forget everything they've done. So that way we're not training on your data and on your context. So, and then the last thing, and this is probably, I know, one of Alice's favorite, is that in everything with Vibes, we want to keep the human in the loop, always reviewing and approving everything that's made before it gets committed. So that's a little bit, we're going to run down that. I'm not sure. Do you want to talk more about, React in particular, Alice?
Yeah, we can get to talking about React specifically. Thanks, Jeff. And I think there's so much in Agentforce Vibes that we're building out. You all have the 2.0 pilot now, right? In the extension pack, so folks can try that out. Is that right?
That is correct. You'll see two actually extensions right now: Agentforce Vibes and Agentforce Vibes 2.0. They can live side by side in the same desktop environment. So go ahead and start playing around with that right now.
Yeah, it's super exciting. So everyone on this stream, go check it out. So I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit more specifically about Salesforce Multi-Framework. And, previously, and you all know this because you all are developers who are building apps on Salesforce, your LWCs and Lightning components and experiences on Salesforce. Building on Salesforce up to this point has meant that you are limited to two options, right? You have the Lightning apps, where you have a lot of the pre-configured apps settings and all of the capabilities that come with Lightning. And then you have Experience Cloud for guest user support or sites or marketing pages or commerce experiences. And there weren't a ton of options in between it, right? If you wanted something that is a little bit more customized, or how they say, pixel perfect or visually stunning, as I like to put it. And so now with our support for multi-framework and with Vibes, and how you can now use AI to really customize the app experience that you want to deliver, this unlocks a whole different world for developers, right? Because you can now build super customized apps really quickly with Agentforce Vibes and other vibe coding tools that you might be using. And so this then means, for the UI layer on Salesforce as well, we want to make sure that we are remaining flexible. I know for some folks who are building with React, they're also building with Lightning, and they're also building with Angular and what have you. And you want all of these experiences to kind of come together and have a cohesive experience. And so this is kind of where the Salesforce Multi-Framework was born out of, the desire to give you all with the tool set and the capability so you can build faster and really have a customized experience really quickly with all the AI toolings that we provide. So if we go into the next slide, some of the questions I've gotten a lot is around, what does React support mean, right? What does it actually mean? And it can mean a number of different ways. And so I'm going to start with, if you have a React app, or if you're already building in React, you have a React app somewhere, not in Salesforce, deployed in a different hosting provider, you can bring now this React app into Salesforce and host it with us. And so we also provide a lot of toolings around making it easy for you to build a new app with Salesforce. So things like, we have templates and sample apps that's so easy to access from Agentforce Vibes as well. So you can quickly scaffold your React app with templates and sample apps that all kind of generates and sets up the SFDX project for you. We have the live preview. So as you are iterating and building or vibe coding in React, you get an instant feedback of what it looks like and the code that's generated. And then this is all part of your existing SFDX workflow, right? And the part that makes it really powerful is that now, because your React app is hosted in Salesforce, you don't have to pass in like auth headers or do manual integrations with APIs. All of that comes for free because the app is hosted where your data is in Salesforce. And so that makes it really powerful and makes it that much easier to iterate and move quickly. And not to mention, right, Salesforce handles a lot of the governance and permissions. You can reuse your workflows that you already have, and the system of record being Salesforce being the system of record for all of your experiences. And of course, with Agentforce Vibes, we make it super easy to vibe code it all too. Um, Going into the next slide, the first part that I just talked about is about how you can host your React apps, build a new React app on Salesforce. The second part of what we're also supporting is if you have React UI, if you have components that you want to reuse in your existing Salesforce apps, we also support this type of micro front end experience and pattern. And so you imagine a page, Experience Cloud page, where you have a customer portal and you have this one component that is in React that maybe someone else built, or it's a design system, or another person in another team that's building in React has built, that you want to reuse instead of rewriting the same thing in LWC. And that's what microfrontend is about. We enable you to bring React components into your existing Salesforce apps in Lightning and Experience Cloud so that you can use it together with your LWCs, so that you have this micro front end pattern where these components are all coexisting in the same place, all done through our enterprise grade security. And that way you can have a very consistent experience across the page, and they all look the same, right? For a non-developer person landing on the page, they would not know it's a LWC or React. They don't have to worry about what is the technology under the hood. I'm going to pause there and jump right into roadmap. I know we want to have a lot of time for the questions. So this our roadmap ahead. We announced the React Apps on platform and beta about 2 months ago now. And we've been getting a lot of great feedback from y'all. So keep them coming. We love getting feedback from the developer communities. And we also have the micro front-end experience available as developer preview. And that we are targeting to bring into GA along with some of the many other features we're working on for Dreamforce. That said, the React apps on platform, we're working towards general availability in June, so coming up super close, along with Agentforce Vibes 2.0 that Jeff talked about. In July, we have some more features that are coming up, like packaging and hybrid visual editing that we'll have in pilot and beta. And we're hoping that all of this we can bring to general availability for Dreamforce September timeframe. And I know a lot of people have asked, is it just React? It's called multi-framework. Are we going to support other frameworks as well? And the answer is yes. We are working on Angular support as the next framework, UI framework to support, and we're hoping to release that as beta by Dreamforce time. All right, I'll pass it over back to you, Charles.
Alrighty, awesome. So let's get into the Q&A, and we have a ton of questions. So I'm going to just go ahead and bring us all up here so that you see the experts' names and you also see us, okay? So remember, this is a live show, so please do submit your questions. I'm going to grab a few questions. Oh my gosh, we have so many questions. Let's start from the top. Some of these have already been answered, but let me see here. Here's a great question from Sally. Oh, cool. Any advice for React beginners? Is using public React learning materials good enough, or are there any differences between regular React and React on Salesforce that we should be aware of? So I think, Alice, that one's for you.
Yeah, this is a great question. Thanks, Sally, for submitting the question. We've been getting a lot of questions around, is building on React with Salesforce different than how I've been writing React if they've been a React developer for a very long time? Is it very different? And the answer is, it shouldn't be, right? So the goal here that we wanted to address was we want both React developers or, in the future, Angular and other framework developers to be able to build with Salesforce. And so one of the things that we were super intentional about is making sure that any React app that you're already building outside of Salesforce, it makes it easy for you to bring it into Salesforce, use it along with all of your other Salesforce apps and toolings and workflows. And so, a lot of the basic React web development classes or resources you should absolutely leverage those. And as you build those React apps, you should also be able to host those React apps in Salesforce. Some of the Salesforce specific things would be around more of the developer workflow. So things like, SFDX project structure, which is about, how you structure your code, the metadata that Salesforce uses to essentially like find your React app. So those are, Salesforce specific things, and those are there even without for any kind of hosting provider you use. Like they need some way to easily discover your React app. And so, to answer your question, definitely feel free to leverage all the beginners React courses or resources that are out there and deploy them with Salesforce.
Yeah, I think we spend a lot of time and effort trying to make it easy to more or less not really port, but bring your existing apps or learn how to write new apps on the platform so that if you're a React developer, it's not a big lift to get your apps running on Salesforce by just knowing some of the flat platform intricacies of like different type of web platforms.
Another question here from Apex Genius AI. Does Agentforce Vibes utilize the metadata experts tool to create metadata or just execute metadata actions like call a flow or invocable Apex? That one's for you, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, is this really a person asking this? Is this an AI genius asking this? That I want to know. So, but no, it does actually use the metadata extras. There's a couple of MCP servers that we utilize to give the models context on how to build Salesforce metadata, because of course, not every model knows the intricacies of building XML from the Salesforce platform. So we do. So we have a number of skills that we've created. There's about 70 or so skills now, and they're all available in the Salesforce open source repo. It's in the force.com environment. I think it's called SF-2 skills now. SF skills. It used to be renamed something else, but it's been changed. And you can use those skills from there. And so when you actually are doing like, let me build a custom object or build a flexi page, it's going to call that metadata experts server, grab the context for how to build that metadata type and provide that to the model so that it knows how to build, this metadata with more efficiently. And also hopefully it's going to be higher quality to deploy the first time.
Amazing. Okay. Another question. This is a question that came in that was pre-submitted. And this one's for you, Alice. What NPM limitations will there be for Salesforce Multi-Framework? What is the process like for submitting requests, having versions available? Namely, will Tailwind version 4 and not just 3 be available?
That's a good question. So kind of at the high level, any NPM packages or modules that you're using to build your React app, you should be able to leverage them from the React app that you deploy on Salesforce. And so, and to kind of one layer deeper, how we on the platform are loading these React apps that you deploy is essentially once you have the React code, you run, and if you're using Vite plugins, you run an npm run build, and you build the React app, and all of this is done locally. And then once you have the build artifacts and the dist directory, you still do deploy all of your source code, but when we serve it from the Salesforce platform, we're essentially serving the files that are in your dist directory, right? And so our goal is to support any standard NPM ecosystem workflows as much as possible. But of course, we want to balance that with security and performance and how we support them, right? So it's a balance that we're managing now, but in general, any of the toolings that you're using within your React app, you should be able to use, and because you're building all the app entirely locally and then serving and deploying that to Salesforce, and we're just serving what you provided us in the dist directory. So yeah, I think things like Tailwind, something that is on our radar, and we support that today. And we know customers want to use modern ecosystem. So that's, I think, the exact version availability and how we continue to support all of the future version is something that we're talking through, especially with some of the things like packaging. But yeah, that's something that we want to make sure that flow is super easy for our developers.
Awesome. Another question here we got. Let's see, where is this question? I have to find it. It's a really good question. Let me see. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It's a question about Vibes 2.0. I'm sorry, so many. Sometimes I can't always find them easily.
What was the question? Is
Here.
Vibes awesome? And the answer is yes.
Always yes.
Okay. Here it is. With Vibes 2.0 allowing you to essentially bring your own harness, will there be more concentration on Salesforce provided well-defined skills plus MCP over an alternative client-based experience? And this one was pre-submitted from Beach Horn.
Oh, from Beach. Thanks, Beach. Great question. Fantastic question. So yeah, so we're going to have multiple SDK providers. So you'll have, for instance, OpenAI, Anthropic. We'll have client SDK. They're finishing up their SDK now. We're going to have Mastra. There's also talk about maybe Mistral SDK as well. A lot of people in the UK, in Europe are looking for that as well. So bring your own SDK. I'm not quite sure how that would work. because there's a lot of stuff tied to the different parts of the gateway that the SDKs are from. Where we now have an agentic SDK that a lot of different platform servers are going to tie into. And so that's gonna be like one SDK that will be wrapping around different ones as well. So not necessarily a wrapper, but it'll be implementing those actual SDKs. So I mean, we're saying like this is the preferred approach is using these skills, these MCP tools. So we'll be having quite a few more of those. I think you're going to see a lot of the MCP tools are going to be moving towards skills. That's kind of a trend in the whole industry. MCP servers, we thought 6 months, a year ago, we're going to, save the world. And now there's a lot, some issues with that, with token bloat and, being selective on which tools are called by different models like that. And so you're seeing a lot of people who are moving their MCP tools to either skills or just straight CLI commands. And we're kind of doing the same thing here. So that's going to be the prescriptive way we're going to be doing things going forward as well. I hope that answered the question. It was a roundabout way to say yes.
Love skills. I just write skills when I'm free, right? Just writing the docs.
You have Vibes write skills for you, which is even better. So that's great.
Ooh.
Hey, that's
a skill for writing skills. I would use that skill.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a question from Aditya Singh. Besides reusability, what other aspects can we optimize using React? Is Agentforce Vibes 2.0 optimized to handle React-based changes and support additional React implementations? That's for everybody.
Yeah, maybe I'll take the first stab and pass it over to Jeff. So one of the areas where React is really awesome is that what I mentioned around flexibility. Right? So if you are already building with React, but also React has so much resources out there in the web. There's so many web developers that are already building in React. There's a lot of Stack Overflow resources and the developer community. And so all of this are available to you as a developer if you want to build and write code in React and run into any issues or need resources and support. Right? And also one of the other things is as we go into vibe coding with Agentforce Vibes and any of the AI toolings of your choice, there's so much resources out there around building and writing code in React that you might be able to do some very niche and very specific things, which I think if you're building like a normal, well, not a normal, but like a standard e-commerce app or a web page, you may not run into. But if you're looking to do something very specific or a very custom workflow experience, you might be able to have a better chance getting that right with vibe coding in React versus just based on the amount of resources that are out there in the web that AI is vibe coding off of, right? And so I think that's one of the areas where React is really a great choice if you're looking to start building an app. Having said that, if you're looking to build something very specific to Salesforce and specific to your Lightning app or Experience Cloud app, those are areas where I think you can continue to build with our existing Lightning ecosystem and Lightning frameworks, and those are kind of where Lightning Web Components would really shine. Right? Also, I think one of the things that one of the customers I've mentioned was for React, there's a lot of performance tuning and a lot of libraries to help with that. And so if you were looking to have very specific, hit very specific performance goals for your app experience, you might have more resources in that way as well. And I'm going to pass it over to Jeff to talk about the Vibes experience too. But we've done a lot of work to make that great.
Yeah, you said most of the great things I was going to say as well. So thank you very much. Much more eloquent than me. Thank you. So yeah, so Vibes, it's really good at writing React. I mean, we showed that last Dreamforce, Alice, when we did the whole React demo back then. Vibes is really good at writing React. The models know how to write JavaScript and CSS. So we're just leveraging that as well. What makes Vibes a better tool for writing React than, let's say, anything else is that, there's a lot of intricacies on how to write React in the platform. And some of these other models or agents don't necessarily know that right now. They haven't been trained in that, but the skills and MCP servers that we have involved with this whole tool chain of Vibes can write React really well for the platform. So, I mean, we think that that's the way going forward is going to be, React UIs for applications for most companies. So we're super excited about that, and also, the new frameworks that Alice is going to be delivering in the near future.
New shiny thing. Yeah, we've done a lot of work to optimize the experience with the Vibes to React, and I think a lot of the skills and MCP servers that we provide from Salesforce really help that experience. And also keeping in mind, right, if you're vibe coding from Vibes, it has the context to all of your Salesforce orgs, so it makes building with Salesforce that much easier and require that less prompts, right?
Yeah, well, let me touch on one thing also that reminded me. So we have a new server. It's called the Salesforce Catalog, so you can access a lot of your metadata without having it locally. So let's see, a lot of these larger orgs, as a developer, you don't pull down your entire org, out of the managed package, not everything. But let's say you're working on an application, you have to create some custom object, and you're like, well, does this custom object already exist? Or if there is a existing let's say field in a custom object or an unmanaged package that you want to use, you don't have that down locally. You can use the MCP servers, the metadata grounding servers, to actually introspect your org and see what's there. So if there's a managed package that has a pick list values on a custom field, you can pull down those pick list values and use those in Vibes without ever having to have the metadata locally. So that allows us to reach into your org and kind of interrogate what's in that org and what the configurations are.
Which, by the way, is huge. Like, I've definitely tried vibe coding with like other tools, right? Like Cloud Code or something, but you have to tell them a lot of context before you can get something working. But once you do, it works. But it's just that first beginning. It's like connect to the org and read everything that's in the org, So
It
it's
is.
awesome.
You save a lot of work from Agentforce Vibes. I have a video coming out showing folks how to set up Claude Code for Salesforce and Salesforce development. And you do got to pull the skills. You got to set up the MCP servers. It's a good amount of work. Agentforce Vibes just works out of the box. A question from a LinkedIn user: will the React component be able to communicate with LWC/Aura in parent-child containment?
Yeah, this is a great question. I love this. So this is kind of getting to the microfront end pattern experience that I was talking about earlier. We like to think about React support on platform as both supporting React, like full React apps, as well as supporting React components that are hosted in and used with LWCs in the context of Lightning apps and Experience Clouds. So the micro front end product that right now is in developer preview that will we're talking to GA in Dreamforce in September. What it does is essentially it acts like as a kind of like an LWC wrapper around the React UI, so that it can then you can drag and drop it from your Lightning App Builder or your Experience Builder, or use it along with the rest of your LWC components in your Lightning apps and Experience Cloud apps. And in that wrapper, we provide the APIs to make the eventing and passing, any communication a lot easier. I think that's like post message under the hood, and also being able to drag and drop that component on the page along with LWCs and have it be interactive. Those are the kind of experiences that we are planning for that we're building for the micro front-end experience. So you can kind of think of it as you have your React component, you're essentially creating a custom LWC and wrapping it with LWC with the React component in it, and using it as you do as you use any LWC from a page.
Amazing. So it sounds like a yes. Like you can talk to LW. You can talk to Aura and LWC as a child component, which is great. Here's another question from Aryan Kumar. If you were designing a Salesforce app from scratch today for the next 5 years with Agentforce in mind, which parts would you intentionally avoid building in React and why?
That's a very specific question. I'm
Yeah, there's a
curious.
lot of things you wouldn't do in React.
Yeah, yeah. Huh, that's a great question. Well, I do not claim to see the future of the next 5 years. Just
Over
putting my
5 months. We can barely see 5 months ahead of time.
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think Jeff and I, I think there's a lot of things that are just changing a lot, right? And especially with AI. We're just talking about how like skills are now taking over MCPs, and I feel like that happened within a couple minutes, like months. So anyway, going to your question. So if you were building an app today from scratch with that is integrated with Salesforce that uses data that you have in the CRM, um, that is kind of forward thinking for to build a business on top of. I think that's kind of what you're getting at. One of the things that we have talked about that is kind of on the roadmap slash we're trying to be more opinionated on is about server side support around React. And so and what I mentioned earlier is one of the things that we're unlocking for React support on platform is you can build your React app completely separate from Salesforce. And then once you're done, you run the build locally and then deploy the source file and this directory into your org, and we serve it directly from your dist file, right? But if you want to build a React app that has a lot of server-side configurations, so server-side rendering is a one, or making any other server-side API calls that then changes the behavior of the React app experience. That is something that we are currently not planning to support. And again, I'm saying this because I cannot see the future. 5 years is a long time. But that's something that we're not keeping on the roadmap. And the reason for that is a lot of the times, when we think about where the modern web is heading towards, we're moving more and more towards a very lightweight development experience and frameworks. And so a lot of Vite is super popular, and that supports React and Svelte and Vue and kind of that category of frameworks. And when you see the modern frameworks that are being used to build apps today, like I forget what the page is called, but kind of the surveys, you can see that the web development is moving more and more towards very lightweight development, so that you can directly serve all the static, build files directly to the browser. And so that's where we're putting our focus on, so that it enables us to unlock more frameworks in a lightweight way. So I know we talked about, we have React support and we're working towards Angular support. From there, unlocking other frameworks like Vue or Svelte or any framework that I may not have heard of, kind of being able to load them in the same way and pattern is really powerful for us as a platform. And so that is something that we're kind of focused on right now. Having said that, maybe a year or two from now, we'll start to add server-side support, who knows? But if I were to kind of put my, what's the word, cast a ballot, that would be something that I would avoid. But besides that, honestly, one of the things that we want to move towards is, kind of moving with the modern development workflows and experiences. So, and we as Salesforce want to stay ahead of the curve as well. If not, at least go with the curve, right? And so we want to make sure that all of the modern ways that developers are building today, we are able to support that pattern, so that you can build quickly, reuse all of your apps within Salesforce along with the Salesforce ecosystem.
I think also one thing to talk about is what not to build, is like what to build. So you look at React as more the presentation layer. You don't want to bake security into that. You want to bake logic into that. You want to build with the Salesforce standards and practices. I had one PM a long time ago said the first rule of writing code on Salesforce is to not write code on Salesforce. If you can do it declaratively, if you can build flows, or if you can build validation rules, or custom objects, declarative should be first. That's where we want to put a lot of your work at, is declarative part, and only write the presentation layer or the UI or any custom logic with the code if you absolutely have to. So I would recommend Salesforce development best practices. keep those different tiers where they belong, and the custom objects and the validations and the security and the logic all there. And, the React is more of your presentation layer.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like we're moving more and more towards a very metadata-driven ecosystem and app flow. So
You might say
UI
even
is
headless. You might say headless, right?
boom, mic drop.
And that's the end of our. No, I'm kidding.
It's
That
a
would be
drinking game now.
right. We have another question here from Sally. Can we track React UI bundles and metadata on DevOps Center or not? Would either of you happen to know? I'm not a DevOps Center person.
I would say no. What do you think?
Yeah, UI bundles are not yet a first-class metadata type in DevOps Center, but it is something that we're working on. So keep an eye out for that. And we want to make sure that these all connect and integrate with the DevOps Center. But I think that's in the works. So that's a great question. Thanks for asking that.
Side note, like not a complete tangent, but like slightly tangential. I was building a Salesforce Multi-Framework app the other day, and I noticed that when I was deploying my source, like my actual source code to Salesforce, and I could pull it down, which I thought was pretty cool. It's a pretty neat feature. I would have expected that the only thing that got deployed was the dist folder, but who knows?
Yeah, I was having that recently as well, where I just deployed directly to my org. And then I realized, oh, I didn't update my Git. And so now the two were kind of out of sync. And so I was pulling the changes from the org and pushing it to my Git, which is, totally not recommended, right? This is
Yeah.
just my, personal project. But yeah, I was like, wow, it's just so much easier to deploy now and iterate. And so I forgot to make commits to my Git, which is crazy.
Totally.
So you're saying you're not a developer, Alice? What you're trying to say?
Only a part-time at night. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Let's see here. Here's another one from Arian Kumar. Keep the good questions coming, my friend. If you were starting your Salesforce journey today, what roadmap would you follow considering Agentforce, React, and AI are growing so fast?
Woo! Yeah, it's kind of like get on Twitter and just hold on tight, right? Yeah, I mean, I would do more things like know how AI works. I would start using Agentforce Vibes just to start building stuff and see how you use the tools with different frameworks. You can use AgentScript to build Agentforce agents, of course, React as well. There's a lot of things you can do with it. And I would just start getting your feet wet in it and get working with it and asking a lot of questions. Like if you don't know how to do things, you don't know how to build stuff with React, how to get started, you can always ask Vibes, how do I do this? And it's going to explain things to you. That's one thing I always do. I would just start learning how to build with AI. I remember someone told me one time, you want to be the person telling AI what to do, not AI telling you what to do.
Alice, any thoughts?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I might have like a slightly different answer here. So I think especially now with AI, there's new toolings coming out left and right. And like Jeff said, we're all following the news every day and like, what's the new thing that was announced? Like, what's the new model that came out, And I think one of the things that I really think is valuable with building with Salesforce is that we have a lot of support for the specific industries that you might be building for. So depending on your use case, you might be building for a customer that is in healthcare, or you might be building for customers that are in, science fields, or what do we call life sciences, or marketing and commerce, right? And each of these industries have very specific requirements. I think when you get to the very foundational aspects of how do you build a web page, that's, of course, very, similar across all the industries. But once you get to like spaces like healthcare, some of the niche requirements like HIPAA compliance or what have you become really critical. And I think that's where some of the Salesforce teams are working on, agents that support those specific industries. And so I think just thinking about what are the values that you get with Salesforce, and like depending on your use case and what you're building, there might be a lot of very niche but very useful tool sets in the Salesforce suite of products that we provide. And so, and I think for Jeff and I, we're kind of driving and making it easy for you to leverage all of the Salesforce offerings when you build an app with Salesforce, right? So I would really kind of pay attention to and think about what are the use cases driving the apps that you're looking to build, and like what are the specific Salesforce offerings that you can use, that's good to have in the back pocket, so that there's parts that you can build and vibe code and build super quickly. And then there's parts where it takes a lot of prompts to rebuild or kind of go through all the requirements and have that experience. So I would look out for those. And that would be kind of my answer to your question.
We have another one here from Satish Kumar Bilasanti. When deploying React components within native Salesforce developer experience, what kind of measures need to be taken?
Yeah, I love this question. So if you are, well, let me kind of maybe run through what I do, right? And or any developers can do, right? If you're building a new React app, so in the earlier slide, I had a screenshot. I don't know if folks might have seen it, but from the VS Code extension of Agentforce Vibes, we have the welcome page, and from there you see different tiles where we provide a super easy way to scaffold your project. We also even provide some sample apps that you can get started, and so you can quickly click on those to scaffold your project. That is all set up. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Charles. That gets you all set up and ready to start vibing or writing code manually and get started, right? So you don't have to set up your project structure yourself, right? But essentially, it's running the template generate command on the back end. Once you do that and have all of the React code written, your app is looking good, you preview everything, it's all awesome. You use GraphQL to connect to all the data that's in Salesforce. Now I'm ready to deploy. So what I would do is I run an npm run build to build the React app, and you have the build artifacts, and from there you can run SF project deploy to deploy your SDX project or the specific files that you want to deploy. And that will, and of course, go through your authentication and connecting to your org and what have you. And then there you have it. You'll have the React app deployed in your org. And so it's as simple as that. And then from there, you should see it in your org. Like you can go to the app launcher and you should see that app show up in the app launcher, click to open the app, and you should see the React app that you deployed into the org. And if there's other things that you want to update, rinse and repeat, go back to the command line or vibes to make any updates, run the build and deploy. And yeah, that's the flow for developer experience. And I think that's a common flow for a lot of the React developers today. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add here?
No, I think you crushed it as usual.
Amazing. Okay, so let's see here. Thinking about that, when I build multi-framework apps, and I'm just always playing with it. I'm always messing with it. If I find an issue, I try and file it. I found
We
that
hear from Charles a lot.
they love me. They probably hate me just a little bit because I'm always.
We all love you.
Hey, fix this. Can you change that? I have found that oftentimes you can use the same workflows you use for general web development if you've ever done that. So a lot of the same things work, right? Like if you're worried about your packages that you're using and you're upgrading non-Salesforce packages for development, You can add a minimum release age. You can do your development in dev containers. I've like tried all these different things. And the really cool thing about what Alice and Jeff are building is that they don't really at all fight modern web standards. They adopt them and they use them like really, really well, which is why I'm such a big fan of their work. And they're two of my favorite people. So, you just take the same, action you would otherwise, in my experience. Cool. So here's a question from Aditya. Can the existing architecture support micro front end React implementations?
Yeah. I'm curious what you're referring to about existing architecture, but I think I'm going to guess that you currently have Salesforce apps that you have built out, you have some flows, maybe you have an Experience Cloud site that is a commerce site or something like that. I'm just kind of making assumptions here about your existing architecture that you might have. And yes, the answer is the goal here of the React microfrontend support is to enable just that, where you can use React UI. So let's say you have, a React app or a couple of UI components somewhere else, hosted somewhere else, and there's a couple of them that you want to reuse from within your Lightning apps or from your commerce page. There's like a little button that you really want to use that you don't want to recreate, or maybe there's a drop down that you want to surface on that commerce page. Then you can use micro frontends to embed those and bring those in and serve it from your app or your existing Salesforce app. So I think I mentioned before the how micro frontend works is that it's essentially kind of like an LWC wrapper, so that you can embed your React UI into the LWC wrapper or the micro frontend wrapper and use it as though you're loading an LWC from your page. So you can use your builders to load it directly from your Lightning page or Experience Cloud page, or you can use it like a custom component that you can load from a particular area that you want to add the code into. And one of the things that so this is in developer preview now, and one of the things that we are actually working towards for RGA and Dreamforce is that because we have support for React apps within Salesforce now, we also are building this microfrontend experience to also kind of use our same UI bundles implementation. So the React UI that you're bringing into microfrontends and embedding into Experience Cloud, you can also host that React UI directly from Salesforce as a part of your UI bundle, and then set the target for that to say, expose an Experience Cloud or Lightning app, etc. And it exposes that particular React component or an app into the target of your choice, like Experience Cloud or Lightning through microfrontends. So yeah, we're actually really excited about this. I know at TDX, a lot of folks have come up to me and are like, wow, this is so awesome, because that's what they were looking for, right? And so it really kind of marries the story of you're currently building all of your apps in Salesforce with Lightning, Experience Cloud, etc. And how can you also leverage React within the apps that you already have? And that's totally what we want to support, of reusing any of the existing UI that you have so you don't have to rebuild things.
Quick follow up to that one. Will the React component be able to be exposed in Agentforce agents?
Ooh, that's a great question. I actually got this question recently, and
Yeah.
yeah. And yes, I think so. I think what you're saying here is React, if the React component you have that built in Salesforce or hosted in Salesforce, and you want to expose this in the agent that you have built out in Salesforce, and we actually have, well, so I guess the question is if you want to directly pull in the component itself or the data itself from that conversation, right? Because if you're talking to an agent and like you're essentially prompting it, right, saying like, "Hey, tell me about the opportunities that are in my org that's assigned to me, or opportunities that closed in the past month, or etc." And so, like, I'm curious if you would want to expose the full component, or if you're looking for just showing the data and generating the responses. So I
I
think,
think we
yeah,
had that same kind of question in the team as well. It's like we want to be able to provide the same information and service it different ways depending on what that presentation may look like. So maybe all of our different services adhere to some contract about what kind of data it receives, and then it knows how to display that. So maybe it could be some kind of React application or components running Agentforce to go through, maybe a series of like a wizard type process or collect information. And so we have been talking about that, how to make a thin wrapper for presentation, and maybe that would be some type of React component.
Yeah, the headless
yeah,
experience layer thing. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Cool. Another question. I think this is in response to something you said earlier, Jeff. Um, as Agent Force becomes more autonomous, how do you see the balance evolving between declarative tools like Flow and custom frameworks like React, LWC, and enterprise app architectures?
That's a fantastic question. I was just talking to someone about this exact same thing. It's like, when do you want to use something declarative like flows or build something like React or LWCs? I guess it depends on what your standards are for your company. Do you have mandates that says for automation we use flows because that way our admins can go and maintain these, or business users can maintain as well, or are you more of a pro code heavy kind of shop where you let the model do a lot of its development in React or in Apex or LWCs? I guess it just depends on the project you're working on, what you want to do. So I don't know if we actually have a mandate like flows are always better or LWCs are always better. I think it's based on the use case of your project or your company, what type of governance they have for something like that.
yeah, yeah. I know like folks who are also building like and vibing metadata as well, like flow metadata, and also then putting like UI on top of that. And so, yeah, I think one of the things that Hella's really unlocked is this, abstraction layer of, they're all decoupled, right? And so you have the UI layer, and you can have any UI that you want, that's built on top of any metadata, and that also uses data that is in CRM. So I think you have a lot of power to you in using
And
what you want to build.
if you're using a lot of flows, flows can get a little unwieldy sometimes. One of the great things about Vibes is you can automate, you can spin up, invocable Apex classes really easily. So that way you can use flows with Apex for some of the business logic that's testable. Or a lot of times, you may use Vibes to go in and look at a flow and tell you what's going on, document that what that flow is doing, and kind of give you insight into it, and actually use it to debug operations. You can have Vibes say, I'm going to go ahead and insert this record, and it's going to run this flow, and then have Vibes go and query the results and make sure that the records were set up correctly based on the outcome of that flow. So you can use it a lot of different ways with declarative workflows as well.
Okay, final question. And this one comes from Ragul on YouTube. Can we publish React apps in App Exchange?
Oh, good question. I mean, that's what
Great
people want. I
question.
mean, we've got a lot of ISVs who want, beautiful looking UIs. So I'll let Alice give you the lowdown on that.
Exactly. I think Jeff and I have heard from so many ISVs and partners this past week, a month and a bit, since TDX launch, on wanting to package up React apps. The answer is not today, but this is on the roadmap, and we hope to bring you exciting news for Dreamforce. This is something that we're actively working on to support publishing React apps on App Exchange so that our ISVs and partners can build React apps and publish them on App Exchange and share it with other Salesforce customers. And being able to share experiences, apps across customers, across even users within the Salesforce org is something that I'm really excited about. Because right now, a lot of people are vibe coding apps and building a lot and building very quickly, and there are skills that help you do that, etc. And so I'm really excited about kind of what this enables for both developers, but also vibe coding developers, right? Who are not, quite developers, but with the help of, Agentforce Vibes, we're able to build and publish apps really quickly. And so I think this world of, we have so many apps, and now how do we make it super easy to share with other customers and other users? It's a really exciting space right now. So I'm really excited to hope to have great news for you for Dreamforce.
Amazing. Okay, so we're gonna wrap things up. I guess before we end, like, where's the best place for folks to follow you for news on Agentforce Vibes 2.0 and Salesforce Multi-Framework? Are you on social?
I try to be as little as possible, but I'm required to. But yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn as well. I'm a little bit on Twitter. There is a good spot to follow information for Agentforce Vibes. There's a short link, sfdc.co/AFV, that has all kinds of announcements and demos and news and tutorials and videos that we put out. So that's a great place to follow us as well. And then of course on LinkedIn. Most everybody from Salesforce is on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would definitely say follow all the developer community channels, the Salesforce developer LinkedIn page, and all the communication channels there for any updates. Feel free to also follow me on LinkedIn. I think we have a couple of more webinars and info sessions that are scheduled leading up to Dreamforce, so definitely follow along. And especially,
go ahead.
Oh yeah, especially if you are in different time zones and different geos. We have the world tours going on, and so we have different product managers who are different geos who are going to be also showing off like what we're working on, the roadmap, and answer any questions. So definitely check those out.
And if you want to know the real scoop about everything, you need to follow Charles on LinkedIn as well.
Great advice. Great. See, that's why you're all of my favorite people. Y'all know me well. Okay, amazing. Well, thank you both for sharing your time, your expertise, your thoughts with the greater Salesforce community. Let me pull back up my slide real quick. So I want to remind you all, remember what Alice said, join the Salesforce developer community, keep the conversation going. If you didn't get your question answered here, ask them there. I believe both of you are members of the Salesforce dev community, right? So they'll be looking out for questions. So thank you all again so much. Again, follow Agentforce Now community. Make sure that you are subscribed to our events. We have another awesome AMA coming next month. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
That's the end of our show. Bye.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. Talk to y'all later.